A long line of Fizzies who make me understand love, sharing, holding a child up to the stars, holding your tribe in a grip of love. A long line of black people holding each other up against silence. I still hear your humming, mama. The color of your song calls me home. The color of your words saying, let her be. She got a right to be different. She gonna stumble on herself one of these days. Just let the child be, and I be, mama. That's the piece that I did. For my grandmother, a woman who literally just let me be. I was one of those terrible little children. My mama came to get me and my sister from my father's house. In fact, someone told me that house is still here. I'm coming down in, July for the Freedom Sisters exhibit at the museum, and I'm going to make a point to stay here almost 2 weeks because I'll have to hunt it down. I need to see it, I need to touch it, I need to feel it, I need to hunt it down and take pictures. And I was this terrible little girl, you know, who was always, I know when Mama told me to go outside and play, I went out and played, you know, which meant that my braids got undone, you know, my dress got torn, and I was dirty. But I had a sister, however, who was gorgeous. My sister looked just like my mother, beautiful, and she would go outside and stand. You know, she didn't play, you know, she'd go outside all day long. She was like this. And he'd come in, and my aunt would look at Pat and say, oh, look at Pat. Isn't she beautiful? You know, isn't she just gorgeous? I mean, isn't she just as you would send her out? And then I come behind my sister, you know, with, socks down and dirt on me and braids undone. You know, I kept us in these thick braids and dirt on my face and dress torn. And they said, Aunt Sonia, tis. You know, she'll never grow up to be a lady. And that's good. But Mama used to say, she actually said, just let her be, just let the girl be, you know, she'd be all right, you know. And I'm so grateful to her because I did go out and run with the wind. You know, she let me be. She let me just express myself. She let me, bother her with books. And finally she told one of my aunts, you know, who was not an aunt, they were like older cousins, but you know, in the South, the older ones that call aunt. And my Aunt Louise then taught me how to read at 4. And Mama said, she's bothering me with this book, teach her to read. And so by the time we went to Togo Elementary School, I could read. My sister was 2 years older, so she went to 1st grade. And my dad taught school here, at high school here at Parker. And as a consequence, my sister went, I raised, them told that I raised so much, heck, that they, let's say they said, he called the principal and said, can Sonia come along? I said, oh yeah, let her come along, she can sit. But when they got ready to promote my sister, I'd done the work too, right? And then I screamed again and said, oh, promote her, let her go. So I went on. My poor sister suffered for that, right? Because I was always 2 years younger, tagging behind her. But what I do remember when we moved to a place called New York when I was 8 years of age, that I had been taught well by teachers. That when you didn't get something right, I couldn't go outside and play. At lunchtime, that teacher would sit me down and say, now Sonia, let's do this. And then she'd knock on our door in the evening and had extra work for me to do. So we got to a place called New York City. The New York City said, oh, by golly, by gee, we have to put them back probably because they come from the South. And my dad, the only time I ever saw my dad get angry, he went to that school and said, no, test them. And they tested us, and we got into what they call rapid classes. So I was forever grateful for the teachers who taught us not only how to read, but how to do math. It was drilled. And I'm grateful for a little boy by the name of Walter. I don't remember Walter's name. He would just take my braids and dip him in ink, in the inkwell, But I'm grateful because at some point I had to hit him, and he stopped finally. But also, that was my first little boyfriend, too, after I hit him. And I'm grateful for the, I don't know if the Durrs still live here, Delight Durr, George and Delight Durr. Mr. Durr was an editor of a newspaper here. I have to track them down too, the Durrs. And the Durrs used to, a lot of them in that family, well, about 6, 7, 8 children, used to chase us home from Tuggle. And my sister and I would be booking it, you know, home. And finally one day I just stopped and said, okay, you want to fight? I'll take you on. And they didn't stop. They didn't want to fight. They just wanted to chase us. And we ended up going to the Durrs' house. And we would go to their house almost every afternoon after school. I remember Mama, you know, to get to Tuggle Elementary School. And after the first time I came back to do a talk at the University of Alabama, I asked for them to take me to Tuggle. Because I thought Tuggle was at the top of a hill, but I thought that was my childhood imagination. But it is at the top of a hill. You got to go up a steep hill, and Mama could only go up half that hill. You know, she went up half, and then she'd see us the rest of the way up. And one day she did that, and I ran out in the street, and I was hit by a car. And I can still hear Mama screaming and beating up the doctor who hit me, who was a dear friend of my father's, you know. And she made him come and treat me at the house. But this is what I remember a lot about a place called Alabama, a place that at some point prepared me in some ways for the North. What was difficult about moving to New York City that I didn't have the space to run. We had an apartment, you know, in the back of a building, and we had tall walls around us. And as a consequence, I had to learn, I had to drop what I call my southern imagination, and I inherited the northern imagination. My dad and I took care of him for the last 6 years of his life in a place called New York City. And one day, someone on the idiot box, that is the television, was talking about the possibility of a black president. And my dad told me, said there would never, ever, 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 ever be a black president. And I said, I disagree. And he looked at me, Sonia, he said, with all the activism you've done, you don't tell me you think there will be one. I said, yeah. He said, never. I said, that's because, Dad, you were raised with what I call, you know, that southern imagination where you couldn't do things. You know, he was here, you know, and there are things you can do, and there were reasons why you left Birmingham, you know. But I said, you took me to what I call a northern landscape, where I could imagine anything I wanted to be. I said, I could imagine being a professor, and I became a professor. And I'm not too sure if I lived in those days with you in the South, that could have happened the way, but I know that I could imagine that. I could picture myself as that in a place called the North. And so I said, because of that, because where you brought me to, and what I can imagine, and what I do know, that many of us have prepared the country and the world for Obama.